you for being with us. We appreciate your hard work on all of this. Don Jr., big announcement from him in a minute. First, with reaction to the circus, the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller. He's got On Freedom of the Press. His new time here on the Fox News Channel, Sunday nights, 8 o'clock, the #1 show by far in its time slot. I think you doubled your lead-in, which is huge in TV. The great one, Mark Levin. I know you got a lot to say, sir.
We're here to protect the country, and I appreciate you inviting me on, Sean, because you have an intelligent audience, and I want to go through some of these things. By the way, these two guys who were testifying, I couldn't tell if they were doing a job interview, talking about their great-grandfather and his wife, or they were homeless guys. Basically, they didn't really add a hell of a lot. They're two-star witnesses, and it makes you miss Gerald Nadler, doesn't it? Adam Schiff is such an incompetent left-wing boob. Let's go through the law again here. I want the American people to understand something, because you're not getting it from the legal analysts and the reporters or any of these other people. I'm going to say this slowly so Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, and George Conway can even understand. The law, the so-called whistleblowers, not a whistleblower under federal law. The so-called whistleblowers not covered by the whistleblower statute. The so-called whistleblower does not receive anonymity here during an impeachment process. He can get anonymity from an inspector general in the intelligence community, but beyond that and outside that, he gets no anonymity under federal law. The president's not covered by the whistleblower statute under federal law. The president's phone call is not covered by the whistleblower under the statute, under federal law. So what we have here is a massive cover-up of a Democrat CIA operative with ties to Brennan, with ties to Biden, with ties to NSC former staffers on Schiff staff. Of course they're going to protect this guy. Of course all the media is going to protect this guy, because the whole damn house of cards comes down if he becomes the blue dress, if you will, the blue dress in this case, a la the Clinton matter. Next, the Constitution. I hear these legal analysts and others say, look, it's whatever the House says it is when it comes to impeachment. And who do they quote? The great jurist and constitutional scholar, Gerald Ford. Well, they ought to actually read what the framers said at the Constitutional Convention. They actually ought to study it, and they ought to at least look at the language in the Constitution. Does the Constitution say impeachment is whatever the House of Representatives says it is? No. Treason, bribery, high crimes, and misdemeanors. Now, the Democrats think they have found something, bribery. They talk about bribery. We even have legal analysts talking about bribery. These legal analysts, former federal prosecutors, judges, have no knowledge of the Constitution, no experience, no dealings with impeachment, as I have. Let's walk through it quickly. The framers created a higher standard. A higher standard. They had initially proposed a lower standard for impeachment. So they come up with treason, bribery, high crimes, and misdemeanors. These words have meaning. They looked at what took place in the Parliament. They looked at English common law. They looked at what's taking place in the colonies. They didn't write in there, hey, it's whatever the House of Representatives says, not what your Constitution says. Now, what about bribery? What did they say about bribery? Well, I dusted off my Madison notes from the Constitutional Convention, which it would be nice if a journalist or legal analyst would do that from time to time. By bribery, they didn't mean all the crapola that you're hearing on TV today. By bribery, what they meant was they didn't want a president to be bribed. This is the example they used. By a foreign government, and then they buy his loyalties. That has nothing to do with what's going on today when they're running around. You know, Swalwell. Is that his name? Swalwell, who's not well? Swalwell, you know, bribery. No, let's call it extortion. Let's call it conscience of mind. Let's call it stupid, because you don't even know what you're talking about. And the president is not required to give funds to a corrupt foreign government. So we have legal analysts going on, you know, once the House and the Senate passes, the president, he must give up the funds. There's another statute that Congress passed and a president has signed. A president has to make sure this money is spent wisely. Now, what about the Bidens? Let's put all this aside. Joe Biden wants to be president of the United States. We have a Biden crime family now. This kid, Hunter, Romania, China, Ukraine, just because Anderson Cooper said, you know what, he's innocent. Oh, okay, then we won't ask any questions. His brother, has his hand in the till. They all have their hands in the till. We, the people, have a right to know what the Bidens have been up to before and if he's nominated for the Democrat Party for President of the United States. Let me keep going as quickly as I can. A thing of value. You hear this phrase? It's a thing of value with the President of the United States. You know, intervening in a potential American election in Ukraine in exchange for something, that's a quid pro quo. That's a thing of value. What's a thing of value? The Office of Legal Counsel, the premier constitutional office in your federal government over at the Department of Justice, which also has a lot of civil servants there who've served for a long time, just like the geniuses who testified today, the two homeless guys. What did they say? No, it's not a crime. It's not bribery. But they keep repeating it like it is. Who sets foreign policy, America, in this country? Two guys you never heard of before? Now, it's interesting to hear their language. This guy, the older gentleman, I can't remember. What was his name? Taylor. Irregular channels. Got irregular, going behind closed back channel. Hey, pal, let me tell you something. Donald Trump sets foreign policy, not you, and not all the goons over there at the State Department. He sets foreign policy. You know what? You're the irregular channel. That guy you were sitting next to, Kemp, Keene, whatever, he's the irregular channel. You guys were pushing policies contrary to the President of the United States. Article 2, the President of the United States is the executive branch. There is no State Department in the Constitution of the United States. There is no Secretary of State. And one other thing, this irregular channel. Ever hear of Harry Hopkins? I want you to Google. No, don't Google. Duck that name. Harry Hopkins. Harry Hopkins was a confidant and best friend of Franklin Roosevelt. Now, you liberal Democrats out there, that is the media, you love FDR. You know, everything he did, sick the IRS on his opponents, sick the IRS on the media, rounded up Japanese Americans, kept Jews offshore. You love your FDR. Would you impeach him, by the way? No, of course not. You celebrate it. That said, Harry Hopkins, and every president's had one of these. Harry Hopkins lived in the White House. Harry Hopkins conducted foreign policy for the president. Harry Hopkins went around the State Department, infuriated the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Treasury, the Secretary of Commerce, and he would conduct foreign policy. He'd talk to Stalin, he would talk to Churchill, he would do all these other things. So I have a suggestion for Adam Schiff. Why don't we retroactively, posthumously impeach Franklin Roosevelt? I think that would be justice, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, that's it.
And then I've released the, Joe Biden Ukraine transcripts. And let's see, the tell Vladimir I'll have more flexibility, the tapes with Obama Putin transcripts. Then the Obama mullahs and Iran transcripts. We got a lot of transcripts to read. Great one. Great job. The new time slot, don't forget to change every Sunday night. New slot, 8 p.m. Eastern.